There comes a rare moment in life when the tables turn, when the person who once underestimated your worth is forced to acknowledge a truth they can no longer deny. You see, the human mind, when stripped of its illusions, must confront reality. And reality has a peculiar way of humbling even the most arrogant hearts. A narcissist, drunk on self-importance, may walk away believing they are irreplaceable, but destiny has a rhythm, and it dances to the beat of truth. This speech is about that defining moment when the person who sought to break you sees the strength you built without them, and bows, perhaps silently, to the power they tried to control but never truly possessed. This is not a tale of revenge. It is a revelation of personal power, for no man can dominate the spirit of one who has discovered their own value. Today, I will take you into that moment, a moment of transformation, of mental triumph, and of silent victory. When you walk away from a narcissist, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time in a long time. The fog they created with their gaslighting, manipulation, and false charm begins to lift. Slowly, your true value comes into view, no longer filtered through their distorted perception. You realize you were never hard to love. You were just trying to be loved by someone incapable of loving anyone but themselves. As the days pass, you discover strength in places that once felt broken. You stop seeking their validation and start honoring your own voice, and in that sacred space of solitude, self-worth begins to rise like the morning sun. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. While you are healing, evolving, and stepping into the power of your own identity, the narcissist starts to feel the shift. At first, they may pretend not to notice, but eventually your absence speaks so loudly they can't escape it. You are no longer dancing for their attention, no longer bending to their moods. That change threatens the very control they once held over you. Because narcissists do not feed on love, they feed on dominance. And now their supply has been cut off. They start to feel the weight of what they lost, not because they loved you, but because they lost the one who saw through them and still tried to help them heal. Self-worth isn't loud. It doesn't scream or demand recognition. It just glows. It makes you walk different, speak different, and live different. It commands respect without ever asking for it, and soon enough the narcissist sees what they couldn't see before. You were the prize. You were the steady one in the chaos. You were the light they tried to dim, not knowing it would only shine brighter once it stood alone. That moment, when they realize you're no longer within reach, is when they start to regret. It's when they finally admit, whether to themselves or to you, that you were everything they pretended not to need. There is a powerful language in silence, one that echoes louder than any words ever could. When a narcissist loses access to your energy, your attention, and your emotional reactions, your silence becomes deafening to them. They thrive on responses, good or bad, because to them your engagement is proof that they still have influence over you. The moment you stop explaining, defending, or trying to be understood is the moment they begin to feel the true weight of disconnection. It is in your quiet that they begin to crumble, not because you said something hurtful, but because you said nothing at all. A narcissist expects you to chase, to beg, to try harder to fix what they repeatedly break. They anticipate your need to be heard, your desperation to prove your loyalty, your hunger to restore peace. But when you stop playing the game and walk away without a word, it disrupts everything they count on. Your silence removes the mirror they use to see themselves. Suddenly, they are forced to sit with the emptiness they created, and they can no longer blame you for the chaos. Your quiet is a confrontation, a reflection of their own inadequacy they can no longer escape. While they spiral into confusion, trying to provoke a response, you remain grounded, unshaken. Your lack of reaction says more than any speech ever could, that you have found your worth and you no longer need their approval to validate it. This shift terrifies them because narcissists fear irrelevance more than anything. They need to feel significant, even if it's through destruction. When you refuse to give them that, their control begins to unravel. They realize your silence is not weakness, it's power. They may reach out, attempt to bait you, send breadcrumbs to test if you'll return. But when you don't, it tells them the chapter is closed and the story is no longer theirs to narrate. In that moment, the realization dawns. This isn't the version of you they left behind. This is a version that healed, that chose self-respect over chaos, and that silence has now become their greatest fear. Personal growth has a unique way of pulling the mask off a narcissist's manipulation. When you begin to heal, to evolve, to elevate your thinking, you naturally become less susceptible to the tactics they once used to control you. What used to confuse you now becomes clear. What once made you doubt yourself now reveals itself as projection. And as you grow in self-awareness, their manipulation starts to lose its grip. The spells they cast with guilt, blame, and emotional games begin to dissolve in the light of your newfound clarity. Growth means you stop reacting out of pain and start responding with wisdom. You no longer take the bait when they push your buttons. You see through the love, bombing, and the false apologies. You recognize the pattern before it even begins, and because of this, they start to lose control, not just over the situation, but over their image of themselves as all-powerful. Narcissists are built on illusion. They construct a false sense of superiority and depend on your belief in that illusion to keep their ego alive. But once you grow, you stop participating in the fantasy. You see the smallness behind their arrogance, the insecurity behind their aggression. As you level up, your energy changes. You start to attract peace, purpose, and healthy connections. You begin to operate from a place of power, not pain. And while you're moving forward, they're stuck in the same cycle, wondering why their old tricks no longer work. This frustrates them, it scares them, because now they're exposed. Your growth has taken away their hiding place. They can't manipulate someone who sees the truth. They can't twist your mind when you've done the work to strengthen it, and it's in that exposure that they begin to crumble internally, because a narcissist's greatest fear is not being seen as a villain, it's being seen for who they truly are. And your growth holds up a mirror they never wanted to face. They start to realize that the version of you they tried to control is gone. In your elevation, you've made their manipulation powerless. You've rewritten the story. You've changed the dynamic, and now they have to sit with the truth that you've outgrown the game entirely. There is no louder consequence for a narcissist than the quiet, steady peace you build after walking away. Narcissists thrive in chaos. They need confusion, emotional storms, and drama to feel alive and in control. Your inner turmoil was their playground. But when you begin to heal and prioritize peace, you remove their access to what they once fed on. Suddenly, the silence they mocked becomes the sanctuary you live in. You are no longer reacting, arguing, or justifying yourself. You've stepped out of their storm and into your calm, and that calm is what disturbs them most. Peace is power. It means you are no longer hooked into their cycle of manipulation and control. You're no longer entertaining the same conversations that go in circles or engaging in battles that only leave you drained. And in your peace, they lose the upper hand. They can no longer provoke you, trap you, or confuse you. You are emotionally untouchable. That terrifies the narcissist because their entire sense of power came from controlling your emotional landscape. Without that, they are powerless. What they once called boring or cold now becomes a reflection of what they lost. Your peace reveals how toxic the relationship really was. And as you enjoy the quiet of a mind no longer at war, the narcissist begins to feel the void. They sense your detachment. They see that you're not looking back, not checking for them, not playing the game anymore, and that emotional distance, that absence of chaos, is their punishment. Because for them, indifference is more painful than anger. The narcissist begins to replay everything. They wonder how they lost control. They question why you're not broken, why you're not begging, why you seem happier without them. They may even try to stir the waters again, reaching out with fake concern or veiled insults, just to shake your peace. But you've grown. You've tasted the freedom that comes with no longer living in emotional survival mode. And once you've experienced that kind of clarity, you refuse to go back. Your peace becomes a message: I have healed, I have released, I have reclaimed myself. And while they sit in the mess they created, you are walking in a quiet confidence that needs no explanation, no apology, and no revenge. A narcissist's illusion is only effective as long as you believe it. They thrive by crafting a false image of superiority, control, and emotional invincibility. They want you to think they don't need you, that they are the prize, and that your world would collapse without them. But all of that begins to crumble the moment you step into your strength. The moment you stop shrinking to fit into their fantasy, the mask starts to slip. And with every step you take away from their influence, the illusion they built begins to fall apart. What once looked like confidence begins to reveal itself as insecurity in disguise. What once felt like love begins to show its true nature: control, manipulation, and ego feeding. You start to realize that the power they held over you was never real. It was borrowed from your belief in their narrative. Now, with your eyes wide open and your strength returning, you begin to see things as they are, not as they pretended them to be. And in this moment of clarity, the narcissist feels the walls closing in. They see you growing stronger, becoming more grounded, speaking with authority, and living with intention. They see you making choices based on what's best for your future, not based on fear, guilt, or their approval. And with that, their illusion of control collapses, because a narcissist cannot survive where truth lies. They cannot manipulate someone who sees them clearly. They cannot dominate someone who no longer needs their validation. Their house of cards begins to shake, and eventually it falls. Behind the charm, behind the bravado, lies a deep fear of being exposed. Your strength becomes the spotlight that shines on their weakest points. The lies they told, the games they played, the power they pretended to have. And now, stripped of your attention and energy, they are left with nothing but the truth they spent so long trying to hide. You were never beneath them. You were never the broken one. You were simply under their spell. But now that you've awakened, the illusion no longer holds power. Your strength is their reckoning. It challenges everything they thought they had control over. It makes them question the image they worked so hard to project. And in that internal chaos, they are left scrambling for significance in a story they no longer control. When you finally stop chasing a narcissist, the entire dynamic of the relationship begins to shift. Narcissists are addicted to being pursued. It confirms their belief that they are desirable, irreplaceable, and above you. Every message you sent, every plea for understanding, every moment you tried to explain yourself only fed their ego and reinforced their illusion of dominance. But the moment you stop running after them, something powerful happens. The supply dries up, and the control they held begins to dissolve. You reclaim your time, your energy, and most importantly, your identity. You no longer allow their silence, their coldness, or their mood swings to dictate how you feel about yourself. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix, and in that decision, you begin to rise. They no longer have access to your emotions, which once served as a mirror for their own self-worth. Without your pursuit, they are forced to confront the reality they've avoided, that your presence was never a privilege for you, it was a gift to them. At first, they may not show it. They may act indifferent, unaffected, as if your absence means nothing. But that's part of the performance. Inside, they are spiraling. They're checking if you've moved on, watching if you're happy, testing to see if they can still get a reaction. When they realize you've shut the door for good, that you're no longer emotionally invested, panic sets in. The power they thought they had evaporates in the face of your detachment. Power shifts when you stop giving someone the authority to define your value. The narcissist begins to realize that all the control they once had was only possible because you allowed it. You tolerated the disrespect, believed the lies, and fought for the connection because your heart was genuine. But once that heart decided to protect itself, everything changed. Your absence becomes a lesson, your silence becomes a boundary, and your indifference becomes the loudest message they've ever received. Now they are left chasing the very thing they thought they could discard. They begin to see the depth of what they lost, not because they've changed, but because your power exposed the truth. You were never the one who needed to be saved. You were the one they couldn't keep because you finally realized your own worth. And now you stand, no longer seeking closure, no longer begging for validation, and no longer shrinking for someone who couldn't see your light. What they once tried to control, you have reclaimed. What they tried to break, you have rebuilt, stronger, wiser, and untouchable. The very moment they admit you were everything is not a victory for your ego. It's a confirmation of your growth. Because by the time they recognize your value, you've already risen so far beyond their reach. Their words no longer hold weight. You are not defined by their regret. You are defined by your resilience. Let their confession echo in the background of your life, not as an invitation to return, but as a reminder of how far you've come. You were always the power they pretended not to need. And now in your wholeness you walk forward, not to prove them wrong, but to live your truth right.